to achieve happiness. Sometimes you just need to kill a guy. Um,
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are back. The Eye of the Storm podcast. I'm here with my boys Daniel and Hervey.
Yes, I am back.
Hi.
All right, guys. Before we get into the main discussion, we need movie recommendations for the audience. So, what's the best recent thing you guys seen?
I mean, I've been away for a number of weeks now, and in that time, I've watched a few different things that were surprisingly good and surprisingly better than I thought they would be. So I'm going to actually just list off a few things that I'd recommend. Number one, Challenges, which was the tennis movie with Zendaya in it. That was a very different movie than what I was expecting. And it's all about sort of kind of like her relationship between these two tennis players and her relationship with tennis as well. And she's kind of like your typical mad about tennis, very driven, very very focused on sort of being the number one best tennis player. And then and because of that, she treats her relationship with the two other main guys in the movie based on their same enthusiasm for tennis as well, which is quite interesting to see how it plays out. And then you have this, without kind of spoiling it too much, you have this climax towards the end of the movie about her whole point is that tennis isn't a tennis match. It's about the relationship with the other player, and you kind of see that play out throughout the movie. And then there's just this absolutely great, fantastic scene towards the end where you see that hit its crescendo and fully play out. And that's a brilliant movie. So that's one. A few other kind of notable ones to mention. There was what I watch, Love Lies Bleeding as well. One about a female bodybuilder who kind of goes on a bit of a roid rage, which was a little bit different, a little bit more of a smaller budget movie, and yeah, was just quite an interesting one.
Was that one good?
Sorry?
Because I've seen Challenges, but I haven't seen. I was meaning to watch the second one, the Love Bleeding, whatever it's called. But was that one good?
That one was good. I actually really enjoyed it. At the start, I didn't quite understand what was going on because it's not your kind of typical. It's not your typical movie. It's kind of like your smaller, little bit indie, smaller budget films where it's just kind of almost like a slice of life type of film.
Is it action packed or is it mainly drama based?
Oh, there's very gory action in Love Lies Bleeding. There was a point where I had to turn away from the screen. It was
okay,
it was quite brutal. But I would recommend it. I would recommend it as well. And yeah, what else have I watched? There was so many shows that I'd started and hadn't finished. So it was things like Fallout, Invincible and stuff like that. And I know, Daniel, you mentioned how you probably wasn't a big fan of how Fallout ended. I kind of just saw it as it was just kind of good, light-hearted fun by the end of it. And I was it wasn't the most amazing thing in the world, but I really vibed with the feel of the show, the characters that we were following along the journey and stuff like that. So at the end of it, it's not one of my most favorite shows, but it was a good enough thing to watch to pass some time.
My thing with Fallout was that I think it's got a couple of different problems, including that it's trying to set up 6 seasons of the next 6 seasons of the show, just putting everything Fallout in without any regard for pacing or whether there's any room for it. So it felt kind of overstuffed like that. But really, my big thing with the ending was that it does a thing that's kind of a pet peeve of mine, which is when evil corporations don't act like corporations, right? They just do evil things. Mm-hmm. And my big question with that is always, okay, so you want to destroy the world. Okay, who's going to buy your stuff? What's the profit in destroying the world?
Yeah, what's the end
goal? Right? Evil corporations exist in the sense that that there are companies who do really destructive things, mm-hmm. but that usually means causing pollutions and letting somebody else clean it up or exploiting their workers excessively. But destroying the world does not make anybody money. You know what I mean? Because since the whole plot hinged on that, I just stopped caring because this is not something that's going to make any kind of sense. And I kind of understand that it's there's satire and all of that, but if there's nothing there, then I don't care.
Yeah, that is the part that I didn't quite get as well. I understand the whole vault stuff and selling people buying their way into the vaults and stuff like that
sure.
as well. But it was just like you said, what's the eventual end goal of it, sort of what comes, sort of what comes next,
Yeah.
and maybe
and I get profiting from the apocalypse or profiting from nuclear war,
Yeah.
causing it. That's kind of bad for business.
Mhm.
Like that's the part that where
you kind of
I kind of left the train.
Yeah. I mean, let's hope they explore it a little bit further, because I think they were sort of, they left it off where they were gonna sort of do a little bit more investigation, or sort of kind of see, sort of peek behind the curtains and see what was really going on. So maybe they might explore it a little bit more in season 2.
Yeah, but Fallout as a whole, I haven't played the games very much, but they seem to have evolved in a similar direction where they do that sort of thing, and like it's not a glitch, right? It's not just an episode. It seems really baked into what Fallout is now, and I just don't find that interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with the games either, so I wouldn't be sort of comment too much on that.
But it's a really quality show. It just went in a couple of places that I didn't find interesting.
Yeah, and like I said, like again, for me anyways, I felt like the sort of main character was sort of charming enough for me to kind of like follow on and just like enjoy what was going on. And there were some like side quests where they might have got a little bit distracted as well in it. And I know the whole joke sort of from sort of reading a few things about Fallout, I know the whole joke is how, you get too distracted by all the different side quests that, you don't really focus on the main quest when you're playing the game, essentially. And I think there was, a comment by the Gaul who said, I can't remember what the comment was exactly, but it was along the lines of, every good story kind of like follows on, gets sidetracked by like the side quest or whatever like that. But yeah, the whole feel of it was good. Maybe some like misdirections here and there.
So my thing this week is Incantation, which is a 2022 Taiwanese found footage folk horror movie. And what it basically is, a group of Taiwanese teenagers, like early 20s, like university students, go to witness a religious rituals in the countryside of Taiwan. And they essentially break all the rules of that religion. Like they do everything you're not supposed to do, and as a result bring a curse upon themselves. And the movie is essentially about this woman trying to kind of deal with that and survive that and try to do something about that. And that explores like what the nature of the curse is, why it's happening, how to, what the steps are to get rid of it. And it's really, really strong. It's really atmospheric. The found footage conceit doesn't quite work because they after a while they kind of start hand waving why somebody would be filming in that way. It works most of the time, but some of the time it doesn't. It also resorts to jump scares a little bit towards the end. When leading up to that point, it's all suspense all the time, and it does so very effectively with very simple means. Like if you watch it, you realize immediately how they did it, but it still works because it's very simple and very, very to the point. Just highly recommend. It's a very different kind of horror. It's technically kind of an exorcism story, but not in the way you would normally recognize it. And yeah, just highly recommend it.
Yeah, I saw the trailer. It looked very unsettling. I always think and to be fair, I don't always feel unsettled by found footage movies. This one just felt just different from other found footage movies that revolve around religion. This one just felt, I don't know, it just felt a bit, like I said, it just felt unsettling and just a bit dark. I was like, okay. I was a bit skeptical to go and watch this. I am gonna go watch it, but yeah, I was just a bit scared. Like, if I watch this,
yeah, the fact that it's Buddhism and Taoism as opposed to Christianity makes it feel completely different, because those religions are, and just Chinese folk religion in general, like the entire region, is a lot about there are good energies and bad energies, and they bring good fortune or bad fortune, and everything you do either attracts or deflects one of those energies. And you should live your life in a way that attracts the good energy and repels the bad energy. And like there's this elaborate code of how you should do things and what you should do and things like that to manage all of that. And the movie basically asks the question: what happens if somebody ignores all of that and makes every mistake possible? What actually happens to them? So it's that just makes it feel very different from like a Christianity focused exorcism movie with like demons and there's a priest with a crucifix and chanting a letter. Like it's got a completely different feel.
Yeah. I'm intrigued to see how they kind of try and counteract whatever demon or whatever they're facing, evil spirit they're facing. Obviously, like you said, because it's not like it's not based around Christianity, so I'm not expecting to see any crosses or anything. So I want to see
Yeah.
what the practice is for this one. So maybe.
And there's like exorcisms in those, like there's demons and exorcisms in those religions, but all the details are different and the steps are different, and a lot of it went over my head because I know some things about those things, but not as much. But just looking some, like if you read like opinions from like actual Buddhists or people who grew up in East Asia, they say, yeah, this weirded me out because this is like this is everything my grandparents told me to never do, and the characters in this movie do it, the kind of thing. So it's really interesting, really well done.
Yeah, it makes it more interesting. Cool. I actually watched quite a lot this week. Power Book 2 new season came out. Dark Matter, I watched that. The Boys, which was amazing. Watched that as well, season 4. But also I watched this old film which I watched a long time ago. I had to watch it again. Touristas. That movie it's just a fun movie. So just young travelers go to Brazil for a vacation. And then they end up getting into the coach ends up getting into a crash. Thankfully, everyone's safe. And the coach nearly tumbles off the hill. The driver's there like a madman. But then they end up at a beach, and then they end up getting drugged at that beach. And then it just goes. They end up getting drugged and robbed at that beach. And then it just ends up going downhill from there. As in, like, it gets very sinister because the location they're in, they're known, like, people there apparently kidnap foreigners to get their organs. So it becomes very dark and fun and action-packed and exciting, and just the whole, it's like a group survival movie. And you already know how I feel about these type of movies. One of my favorite movies. So yeah, man, Touristas, I say go and check that out. It's a fun film.
I think I saw it many years ago, but I remember maybe a scene or two. But I remember it being pretty gripping.
Oh, okay, wow. I thought you were going to say pretty rubbish, but I thought you were going to say it was pretty rubbish, but...
I remember it as being kind of visceral.
Okay.
Well, did it not have that impact on you? Or?
No, I said this was a fun movie. As I said, that's what I'm recommending. Say, yeah, I thought you were going to say it was rubbish.
Oh, right, okay.
We generally don't agree on a lot of movies, I've realized during this... during our journey, but actually I don't agree with both of you. Generally agree, but me and you guys, we don't really agree on a lot of the movies that we watch. But hey. But anyways, main discussion time. Hitman,
2023 Netflix movie which released in 2024. Don't know why. Yeah, Jonathan, what's your thoughts?
From teacher to private policeman to hitman, this was a good movie. It's would you say it's an action rom-com, or would you just say it's an action comedy? Anyways, I really enjoyed this film. Surprisingly, I really enjoyed like seeing the many personas, just like the transitioning into different people and transitioning into different hitman. Just seeing the many personas and how I forgot what the main actor's name was, but how he kind of played the role. I think the acting was definitely good standard for today's standard, because a lot of the acting that we've seen in movies past couple of years, I'd be very skeptical. But the acting in this one was really good. But I really enjoyed just the whole transitioning into different people, into different personas, and how he kind of balanced out, how he kind of managed to, live a life as 3 different people in a way. And also, I really enjoyed how he subconsciously manifested the girl that he liked, girlfriend, into which we'll speak on later. But this movie was a good watch. I enjoyed it. The storyline itself was, I liked the storyline, man. I don't think there wasn't really much to it in terms of like it wasn't like, I don't think it's gonna be like an Oscar nominated film. I don't think it can be because it wasn't released in cinema. But can it be? Does it have to be released in cinema?
I think it has to be. That's why Netflix sometimes shows it like in a cinema for a week or something, just so they're eligible.
I wouldn't say it's one of the best movies of 2024, but I would say it's definitely a fun film. And there is some like comedy, especially in the like seeing the main actor turn into different hitmans, is obviously seeing their personas. So that was definitely fun to watch. I'd say that the relationship dynamic between him and his girlfriend was definitely like it was enjoyable as well. It was a bit unrealistic because obviously the character that he was playing as a teacher, as him being like I always find it weird, right, when a guy that's proper chiseled and seen as a sex symbol is playing as the nerdy type of person that doesn't really get girls. I'm like, it's kind of hard to believe. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's you know that's a negative for me, but you know I feel the same way with any other movie. So it's not just a movie, but that's just my personal opinion when it comes to stuff like that. But besides that, I think it's a fun movie.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around whether if I like it or if I don't like it, and I'm very much on the fence with it because the premise behind it was very, very interesting. I mean, it's based on a true story as well, which is quite interesting. And the whole like exploration of like the self and sort of the ego and id and stuff like that was like very surface level, and I felt like they probably could have delved into it a little bit more. I feel like they probably could have like shown a little bit more, sort of, kind of some like the internal conflict within the character a little bit better as well. Like I feel like they could have like kind of like shown his transition as well as sort of his love interest is sort of kind of her character. I feel like they could have improved the way that it was portrayed in the movie, in my opinion. But I do agree with a lot of what you said in terms of like his his performance, Glen Powell's performance in this movie was really strong. I really enjoyed it. Again, sort of playing loads of different personas and stuff like that. Again, another part that I didn't think was sort of super believable was how we just went from being a teacher and someone that kind of helped with the electronics behind the scenes to then being the person that has to go and speak to the people that sort of are recruiting hitman and being so confident in it and not having any flaws and kind of being perfect at it from the very start. That was a little bit hard to believe, but I'll give it a pass as maybe a smaller budget film, and they maybe just wanted to get straight to the point and didn't want to kind of like cover that. But again, I feel like that probably drags it down a little bit for me on my side. And yeah, it's again on the surface, it's a good movie, but it just didn't dig deep enough. And I feel like it had a lot more potential and it had a lot of good ideas which weren't fully explored or delved into enough, which is why I'm on the fence with it. And I know this was meant to be a comedy as well, and like you said, when he was like kind of transitioning into different characters, it was fun and funny. But outside of that, I don't think there was too much great comedy in the movie at that point as well, because I do feel like it was like a rom-com as well. Did I like it or did I not? Again, I'm trying to just like still like again, there's certain aspects of it that I did like and there's certain aspects of it that I didn't like as well. So yeah, it's I'm still kind of processing my thoughts on the movie as we're kind of discussing this, and we'll get into it a little bit further in.
So overall, I like this movie quite a bit. I think it's a very focused movie. I think it knows exactly what it wants to do, and it pursues that. And it's like a straight arrow. It goes directly from start to the finish line, and it doesn't take any detours. And I think it communicates its ideas very clearly. I think the performance is great, especially for the main character, where he's not just three different personas in the same person, but also those kind of bleed into each other. Right, it's not like it's like a switch between the three. They start to merge eventually, and kind of the lines tend to blur a little bit. Some of it is quite heavy-handed because there's several scenes where he just explains the message or the concept behind the movie just at the camera, right? Specifically in all those classroom scenes. Mm-hmm. Where they all just happen to be exactly relevant to the plot, and it's laid out in very simple terms what's going on. And then the ending is a little bit maybe unexamined, where the message seems to be to achieve happiness. Sometimes you just need to kill a guy. It was not nearly like it seemed like that seemed to be like it seemed to be a happy ending, and I don't know if that's on purpose or if that's kind of just happened.
Did you have the message because I think I was gonna say, because you guys had a similar opinion. I don't know if it's similar, but you had an opinion about Beekeeper, about the message that they were pretty much spewing, right? So are you saying the same for this in terms of the message?
Basically, yeah. I was going to bring I was going to bring up the comparison to Beekeeper because there doesn't seem to be any ambiguity at all about what they did to achieve happiness in the end, and the voiceover just unless it's so subtle in its satire that that's the point, that the narrator is so far gone that he doesn't even realize how messed up this is. But I can't tell the difference between that and the author genuinely thinks this is a happy ending, and I'm not sure. But I didn't pick up on any tells that showed me that this was deliberate.
I hear you, but sometimes can't you just take a movie how it is, like just
Yeah.
what it is, like it's you know I don't. This in terms of what I mean by that is, so maybe the script writer wasn't trying to push a message. It was just like, okay, this is a fun ending. So they're not necessarily trying to push a message and saying that, like obviously for Beekeeper, I understand your points that you made for that. And obviously for this one, I understand the points that you made for that. But maybe that's not. He's not trying to say that is the right way to go about it, but it's fitting for this movie.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, but it's still supposed to be a happy ending, and it still very clearly shows that is what fixed his life, right? That he became this way and took these steps, right? It's not a matter of, okay, I just needed to be a bit more assertive. Like it goes way beyond that.
But one thing that I will commend him on, and there's a question I want to ask, don't you think that was it was more like he was manifesting himself subconsciously, same with his girlfriend? Because one thing that I did like was that he didn't even realize that he was turning his girlfriend into a killer, which I think was like one of my favorite things that were executed in this movie. So do you think that whole, like, with what you're saying, because what they're trying to say is, oh, you just need to kill someone to reach happiness, do you think what led to that point was more of a subconscious thing?
I mean, he didn't plan to do it, right? Like,
exactly.
But so the reason I kind of was taken aback by the ending a little bit, which is they get found out by the corrupt cop, right? And he confronts them, tries to blackmail them. They shoot him, and then they are a happy family, with children, and they have achieved everything they want, right? I did not see any kind of ambiguity. Like, they're not even saying, okay, we have achieved what we wanted, but at what cost? Or there's no sign of regret or grief that they killed somebody over this, right? And a movie does not always have to have a message. And actually, I prefer it when movies don't. I prefer it when movies express ideas and explore them as opposed to telling you what to think. But the author still picks, who the good guys are, who the bad guys are, what's the problem, what's the solution, from whose point of view the story is told. These are all choices you have to make when you tell a story. And in this movie, it certainly came as, like, it was presented as, this is a level up moment for Gary, right? He is in a bad place. He's kind of a loser, even though he doesn't seem to have any problems other than being a bit lonely. But like in the end, he's a better person, and the fact that he is a killer in the end does not tarnish that or qualify that at all. That doesn't seem to have occurred to the writer.
I understand. Question: how did you guys feel about casting for, obviously, Glen Powell for this type of character? How did you kind of do you guys have an issue with the character, the actual actor not matching the character?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like you said, it wasn't believable when he was like sat in his apartment and he was a guy with 2 cats eating dinner by himself. I looked at him and I said, how? I literally said to myself, how? And I get what they tried to do in terms of like putting him in some baggier like shirts and jumpers and stuff like that to maybe hide some of his physique and stuff like that. But I feel like there was one scene where he was topless and you could see that he was ripped, and it just doesn't lend well to the audience believing that he is the type of person that would be a loner, would be kind of like all by himself, essentially. But yeah, so for me, it wasn't completely believable.
And I think the thing was more that he lacked confidence, right?
Yeah.
But then it's not entirely clear. Like he's professionally successful. He has a good job. He has a house, right? Like he's not a loser, right? He doesn't live like in a dirty studio apartment and has never achieved anything in his life, right? So it's not really clear to me why he, other than just being generally an introvert, a little bit. It doesn't really seem to connect with him, but like the way that he just needs, a little bit of a push to become more assertive, and because of that, he becomes a better, more well-rounded person. That didn't really seem very motivated, right? It kind of just happened. It's just he's good at it immediately, and like you said earlier, he's flawless at it immediately, and there's no real learning curve for him really, or he never struggles really with becoming better at this job, right? He's just an immediate prodigy, and it seems like he just slipped, like this persona of what was it, Ron already exists, and he kind of just slipped into it, and it's just fully formed. There's no process. There's no real escalation where maybe he improvises the first time and he gets a bit lucky, and then he learns and gets better over time and stuff like that, right? That's kind of missing.
Yeah. And I do understand as well, like him being a psychology teacher, and obviously them showing that he's studying some of the marks before he's going to sort of meet them and trying to create the perfect form to sort of to match who he's going to meet. So I do understand that, and I do understand that explanation, but I just felt like it could have been fleshed out a little bit more. We could maybe seen some of the learnings behind that to then sort of truly believe that he sort of kind of like mastered his craft, as opposed to him being perfect at it straight away.
Yeah.
Oh, so you didn't think that was basically a role where like he was using his professions to kind of aid him in his career as a hitman?
Yeah, I mean that part makes sense. That part makes sense, but it would have been interesting to see him maybe misread it one time, or maybe like have that learning curve somewhere along the lines, and not just because this is what people say about a lot of like female characters that are sort of written in modern media, where they're immediately the girl boss and they're perfect at everything, and sort of they can do no wrong. And again, it lends to the argument that if this was probably a female, it may have been received differently to it being a man, basically. So it just would have been good to see some of the character flaws within him.
Yeah, like that would definitely come up, and I think that's something that you can accuse this character of. Like I'm on record saying it's not supposed to be a gendered concept; it has become one. It's being misused as one, and I think like we did the whole beekeeper episode about that as well. And I think this can be like he's maybe a bit too good at it too quickly. Like I can like somebody can discover that they have a knack for something and then are surprisingly good at it, and then it comes easy to them, right? But it seems like he just like they went from 0 to 100 immediately, right? With if they had shown, and they do take time, right? They do show 5 or 6 sting operations where he plays different characters, and maybe they could have shown how the first ones are maybe a bit clumsy and he still makes mistakes, but number 4 or 5 he's got it down, something like that. And I think that would have made it a more interesting journey as well, where it's clear that this is his talent and he's now discovering this talent, but he still has to learn it.
I don't think it was like a close encounter in terms of like the repercussions that could have happened if he got found out in like the first 2 scenes where he's actually meeting people that want to get someone killed. So I definitely do agree with that. But you guys kind of touched on like female characters. How did you guys feel about is her name Adria? Arjona?
That's the actress. Madison is the character.
Yeah. So how did you feel about her character in the film?
I liked her. I think I think she's. I always kind of like it when different characters are kind of different answers to the same question. And here, this question is kind of, what if you had to play a role to be your true self, kind of thing, right? And she kind of does that, right? She plays the timid housewife, right? Because she's in this abusive relationship, and then she's changed during her relationship with Ron, who is also a fictional character, but she changes him in the process, and there's this whole thing about if you pretend for long enough, eventually it becomes real, right? As applied to personalities. And I think she's kind of an interesting mirror to Gary in that way.
See, I had a question on the whole timid, abused housewife aspect of it, because I wasn't never really sold that she was one. Even in, like the way that they interacted in the sort of opening meet when they're in the restaurant, and she's kind of, especially like, and I don't know it firsthand, but you do kind of hear accounts of like sort of women that have been sort of domestically abused and things like that, and how maybe fearful they are around men, and she seemed to be immediately too comfortable around him. And these are sort of small nitpicks around him. And there was the whole thing about the man's life insurance policy, which came up a little bit later in the movie. So my question towards the end of the movie was she a timid, abused housewife, or was she manipulating him from the start to try and get this insurance policy paid out, essentially? And
so I think the housewife persona was a role she played, and because she had played it for so long, it had become real.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she got a chance to change it, she pretty quickly turned into a different person, right? Like the next time she and Gary meet, she's a completely different person, right? Because at that point, she's been on her own for a few weeks and she's escaped this abusive relationship, and she's no longer constantly in fear of saying the wrong thing. And as a result, she's become probably her true self again. As for the life insurance policy, I didn't pick up on any details where that suggests she was trying to exploit that.
But it was like that whole thing towards the end when they had the cop, the other cop that was kind of like confronting them in a thing, and then he brought up the whole like thing about like the life insurance policy and how maybe that was her ultimate goal essentially. So that's where that.
Yeah, but were there any clues that was in fact her goal as opposed to just getting away?
But then this is what my issue was. Like again, I feel like the actress played her role really well, but then it's just like within the material itself is that it wasn't completely fleshed out or wasn't completely clear whether she was the timid housewife that was an abusive relationship and then sort of kind of like found herself and found a character, or was she manipulating from the very start and sort of kind of like, you know, this manipulative person from the get-go, which is, and sort of trying to get the insurance payout, because if you're going to go to a hitman and say that, you know, you want the husband dead, you maybe want to, you likely would give the reason that, you know, you're in an abusive relationship and, you know, he's sort of kind of like, you know, got this power over you and you just want to be released from that, and that's why you want them killed, as opposed to saying you want this insurance payout directly to the hitman. And also the scene where her partner or her husband, and sorry, just one more thing about the life insurance policy as well, is the whole thing of like where she said to the hitman that they were divorced, but when they met her husband, or when he met her husband, he said that they were in the process of being divorced, but they weren't officially divorced. But still likely for her to get the payout, essentially.
Yeah.
And then just lastly, just back to the club scene of them meeting the husband. It didn't play out as if he was a controlling, manipulative husband as well. It seemed like she'd kind of like left and had been with someone else, and he was maybe like a little bit jealous, but it didn't give. He had this like power over her, essentially. So that's just like my small issues with the character and how it was portrayed.
Yeah, there's a few things there. I believe that he was really abusive because every time we see him, he is acting in a way that's consistent with that, right? He's not portrayed as just a nice guy that people have been lying about or something, right? I didn't see any, like in every single scene, I got the sense that this idea was being reinforced, that he is in fact an abusive spouse, and that I believe that Madison was in fact afraid of what he would do if she tried to get away. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like hiring a hitman is extreme, but I can kind of like the story makes sense to me. And on the other hand, I didn't really see any clues that she was lying, in fact, or that she was manipulating him.
Well, there was also this other thing of when they met at the club, and it was whether it was a coincidence or whether she put them there intentionally for them to like actually meet and for, you know.
Yeah, that's the one time where I can buy that she set it up. either because she wanted to see what would happen, or she wanted to show off that she was, had moved on from him and didn't need him anymore. And there are a bunch of different explanations, right?
Yeah.
Do you guys think they should have played a bit more on the mystery of her character, especially in the scene when they find out that her husband got killed, and then straight away she pretty much revealed that she was the one that killed him? Do you think maybe it would have made it a bit more interesting now the hitman actually going on a police investigation where he's trying to find out if she actually killed him, her husband?
I think, like Daniel mentioned in his kind of summary, the movie was like very like straight arrowed, and it was very like kind of like direct with where it wanted to go. And I feel like that possibly could have been a direct distraction, and that could have possibly taken the movie to a place where maybe didn't need to go, especially for kind of it being a smaller budget film, etc. Maybe it just would have been a distraction, and maybe it just would have maybe convoluted everything, because there wasn't really any other suspect, and like he'd mentioned previously, is that like a lot of these crimes are like crimes of passion between people in relationship and stuff like that. So I feel like it might have been a distraction, but I don't know, Daniel, you might feel slightly different on that.
My sense is kind of that a big theme in the movie is that you never see a person in their entirety. You only see aspects of them, and that kind of, and you kind of learn more about somebody the more you interact with them, and sometimes they can seem a different person depending on what mood you meet them in, or in what circumstance. And I think if we have too much information about what's going on, that kind of ruins that theme, where nobody can be entirely sure about anybody who they really are in this movie, right? So Gary can't be entirely sure about who Madison is, whether she's capable of this, what she knew, what her intentions were. He can only see that there are different versions of her, and that it's not entirely clear which of them is real, if any. And kind of the inverse is true of him, where he was always playing a character, but he was actually, I don't think he ever really lied about anything important to her. Like, he lied about being a hitman and stuff like that, but he didn't lie about like his feelings towards her, for instance, or anything like that, right? So in a strange way, she seems sincere but is keeping things from him, whereas he is lying all the time but is mostly honest in the ways that count. So there's a kind of this strange mirror image of each other. And if we know too much about Madison, I think that breaks that dynamic.
Okay. And also, were there any highlight moments for you which kind of solidified that however, you're not too sure if you like the film or not, but so was there any highlight moments for you that stood out?
I quite enjoyed that sting montage where he's like 6 different people in the course of 5 minutes. There was I really impressed with how like the range of the actor in terms of coming across as a different person in each one, and I quite enjoyed that. Other than that was probably the highlight.
I was going to say, I did really enjoy the scene where he's having to go and meet her, but then the police officers are in his ear, and he's sort of kind of like burst into her apartment, and he's having to like on the phone type out like they're being listened to and this and the other, and they're like playing out this like fake argument for the police to hear and this and the other. I felt like that scene was done really well.
That was a fun sequence.
Yeah.
I enjoyed his little like, not battle, but like the beef that he had with Jasper, especially when he was trying to like Jasper didn't out him, but he said when he pretty much revealed that he was still talking to the girl, and then that's when Glenn kind of responded back with, "Oh, didn't you see her also?" I kind of like the back and forth between them two and the like little battles that they were going through. But
I actually really like that one as well. That was like if I'm in it, you're in it as well.
Mm-hmm, yeah, exactly. So, okay, Daniel, I've spoke about this before, right? Where you said you don't really like when people consider films that are not good enough to be in the theaters to be that go straight to streaming, right? Mm-hmm. But for both of you, would you consider this a streaming film? Like, this is a film that holds enough weight. Do you believe that this film could have been a film that holds enough weight to go into theaters?
So I think the decision to release theatrically or straight to streaming should just be a business decision in terms of what will make the filmmakers more money. And I think that comes down to how expensive is it to distribute something in theaters and how big is the audience for this and so on. I think if you have a very small niche movie that will definitely bomb in theaters because not enough people and not enough places are going to see it, then you probably shouldn't do it. And you might be better off with releasing it on streaming, where as long as you have like a small cult following, it may be worth it for the streamer to have your movie in their catalog, right? So I think if I was a filmmaker and I had made this really niche thing that I think would have an audience but not a very large one, then I would go straight to a streaming service and say, hey, I've got this thing. Are you interested? And I think this is a proper movie with broad appeal. Like it hasn't got too much action in it, but it's got humor in it. It's got it looks appealing. I don't see any reason for why this made only $1 million at the box office. I don't know the history behind that, whether this was a proper release or what. But this is a proper movie to me.
It was a very limited release in cinema, and I think in 2023 most people caught it at London Film Festival, as opposed to it having a proper release. And in 2024 it went straight to Netflix, which is quite frustrating. Yeah, because I'm like I agree with you. I feel like this would have done well in theaters, or well enough for them to have recouped.
Well, currently nothing does well in theaters, but except for what's that Pixar Inside Out 2. And that's the only thing that does well at the moment.
Bad Boys as well, to be fair.
Bad Boys is actually doing well.
Really well.
Yeah. No, but like it's a tough time for things that are not an IP or not a sequel, and this is an original story that has not been adapted before, as far as I know. So I can see the calculus of like this is not the sort of thing that people go to the movies for at the moment.
Yeah, but do you feel like the word of mouth could have carried it? Because I mean, at the moment it's sitting with a 96% critic score, a 94% audience score, if I remember correctly. And sometimes you have these movies which are slow burners to start with because it doesn't have to make all its money in the first opening week, but through word of mouth, more people are going to watch it. Especially because I don't think there's anything major in the cinema at the moment or coming up, apart from maybe Deadpool and Wolverine, and then maybe a few other summer movies. But I don't feel like there's in this particular window too much competition where it can create some money.
There would have been space in the release schedule, definitely, even a few months ago. I don't know. I just think this is a proper movie. It could have, and I think it would have bombed because most things like this bomb at the moment. People really only go to big franchise movies at scale. And I think for this one, it may have been the right choice, which is a shame, right? It's not what I want it to be. And I don't know if this movie benefits from being on a big screen because it looks fine, but there's nothing about it that looks better on a bigger screen, I don't think. So this might have been the right call.
If that's the case, right? Because you guys were saying how you like how movies can be direct, right? So it's not too convoluted.
Yeah.
I remember when I mentioned about the whole thing about if they added the whole mystery element, you felt that it might have gone, like you said, it might have kind of distracted us from the main story at hand. It might have just, like you said, been convoluted. But films that are direct, I believe, tend to go straight to streaming. Whereas films that have many subplots, not many, but a few subplots that can still kind of make its way round to the main plot at hand are the films that kind of are hold enough weight to be in the theaters. So that's why I'm a bit in two minds whether or not this film could have held enough weight in the theaters, because like you said, even though I did enjoy it, I felt like it was very direct. I don't think it there was anything like I said, I don't think there was any other elements or subplots where it drifted away a bit from the story, but it still fell into place with the main plot. So yeah, that's my opinion. I don't know. I don't think it would have held enough weight, and I think I kind of felt the same way with what's the film, the one which you guys that you enjoyed, Daniel, but I didn't really like. No, the movie that you liked, but I didn't really like it. What was that film?
Oh,
Stuntman, the Stuntman.
Fall Guy.
Oh, Fall Guy.
Yeah. I found the kid the same way with this. I like this one, by the way, but I think it's with Fall Guy, it was kind of like very direct, like, which is cool.
Yeah.
But I just don't think like films that don't really have like, isn't like a bit complex where it kind of isn't complex enough. I think if films are just very direct, I think those are the kind of like films that end up in streaming in a way. Yeah.
It kind of feels small, right? It looks a lot
Yeah.
like a Netflix production.
Mm.
Just how it's shot. Like I watched other Netflix movies the same weekend, and it fit right in terms of how it looked, which is not a compliment. Like, not that I think this movie looks bad, but like it's like the way things are shot felt very reminiscent of a Netflix movie. But I don't agree with the premise that theater going audiences want more complex stories. Like I kept, as I was watching, I was being reminded of Terminator, because Terminator also has a very straightforward, direct story, and every scene builds on the last in a linear way until you reach this conclusion. And there's no fat around the sides. There's no real side characters. There's no side plots. And this was the same way. Like, every single scene, every conversation either drove the story forward or hammered home the themes of this movie, right? Like, they can't go 2 minutes without talking about identity and superego and all of these things. And I think maybe that's why the comparison came from, or that's where the comparison came from. So I'm not sure that has any impact on whether it does well in theaters or should be in theaters.
I don't know. For me, because it's like whenever I watch a film that's very direct, I haven't really had a great experience with it. Like, for example, 65. It was very direct. I don't think there was really any like much subplots to it. So it was like, okay. And there was another experience that was Fall Guy, for example, as well.
Yeah.
Very direct. When was the last time there was a film that was very direct that did amazing in theaters? You just mentioned Terminator, but that was years ago.
Yeah, a few years. Yeah. I can't think of any specific example, but I don't know. I mean, I don't see that.
I just have a concern that it doesn't hold enough weight, personally, for me. Like, it doesn't have enough weight for it to be as engaging as watching a film that is not too complex, but there's different stories at play, but it's still leading towards that one to the main story. I don't know. That's just my opinion. But yeah, man. I don't know if there's guys. Any last thoughts on it, man?
So, like, we talked a little bit about the themes of the movie, right? Like identity and constructing identities and lying until it comes to truth and stuff like that. And I said in the very beginning that I thought the ending was really weird and dissonant. Like, it didn't feel like it was thought through. Like, where are we on that? Like, did the ending ring true to you, or like, because like I have seen movies where it's very clear that they didn't think this through, right? And it doesn't come across the way they intended it, or it's like the author has like a very particular perspective that means it comes across very differently to general audience or whatever. So am I overthinking this? Did I miss the point in the satire, or is this a case where the author didn't think it through?
I don't believe. To me personally, it doesn't feel like they thought it through. I feel like they reached a certain point in the story, and then again, like I mentioned, it was based on a true story, and they felt they wanted to take it in a separate direction for whatever reason, where they had him sort of kill the character. And like you said, there wasn't any kind of conflict or remorse or thought sort of kind of like behind it. It just seemed like this is how it's going to go, and they're going to sort of go ahead and live sort of happily ever after with their kids and stuff like that. And it felt, without even knowing how to properly explain it, it didn't completely sit right with how it ended. And again, I thought there would be a lot more internal conflict behind it, but
because he seems like a decent person throughout the movie, right? Like,
yeah.
he's good at lying, but he does not really want to harm or mislead people. Like at first he lies to people because they are bad guys, right? Because he wants to prevent a crime, he wants to prevent harm to other people, and he does that by putting away these people who are trying to hire hitmen. And then he keeps lying to Madison, but because this persona lets him be happy for the first time in a long time. So he's always does it with good intentions.
And then you also have that scene where he's in the courtroom and they're actually attacking him as a character for being this manipulative and deceitful person to the people that he's meeting, to kind of set them up to be sort of kind of caught by the police as well, which sort of kind of like lends to that, where he's like questioning his character and stuff like that as well.
But actually, what's interesting about that scene is that Gary didn't answer that question. Ron did. Like the Ron persona comes out and takes over because Gary can't deal with the situation, but Ron can. Right, and which again parallels this idea of if you lie long enough, it becomes the truth.
Yeah. Personally, for me, I don't think them living happily ever after was a good ending, but them actually killing Jasper made sense because they were slowly manifesting into killers without them actually realizing, and I didn't really see no other way out of that situation that they were in, because damn well if they were to give him the money down the line, you don't give a blackmailer money, you know what I'm saying? You just don't. You know what I'm saying? You don't negotiate with terrorists. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's that made sense. Them killing it made sense. But in terms of them living happily ever after without any sort of conflict or there wasn't any some sort of conflict or a situation where now they're trying to get out of that situation of trying to cover up the murder. Just skip straight into them living happily ever after. That I wasn't really too chuffed about, because I was like, I get that this is action comedy, but at the same time, this is.
I actually really liked how that whole sequence played out, right up until to the point where they kill Jasper, because there's this.
But how were they supposed to?
Right, no, that's what I'm building up to. Like there was this web of lies that they've built kind of with good intentions and kind of unintentionally, and it keeps like the net keeps tightening around them, and one by one the off ramps are disappearing, right, and they're becoming more and more trapped, and then they are suddenly confronted by this blackmailer, right, who can destroy everything they've built. And then they panic and kill him, and so, but right. So I like that entire thing made a lot of sense, right? And the reason why they couldn't just come clean to their boss, or why they couldn't go anywhere, like do anything else. And the fact that they killed him is not my problem. My problem is that they don't have any remorse about it, and that the movie portrays it as the solution to all problems.
I think another scene which maybe encapsulates that kind of like emotion. Which I think you're looking for, is the scene where he finds out that she's the one that shot her husband, and then you see the Gary persona kind of like slip out of it, where he's actually panicking and he's like, okay, I'm actually not a hitman, and the other, and actually like, what the hell have you done? And like, we're in like a bit of a like fucked up situation.
Yeah.
I feel like, I guess two things here. Do you feel like that was them kind of showing that he was in that tussle between like the Gary and the Ron persona, and then kind of later in the movie, he's then sort of kind of gone back to the Ron persona when he's going to meet her because that's what he's most comfortable in? Or do you feel like they probably should have shown a little bit more of that struggle between the two characters again at the end of the movie once they've like killed the police officer? Is that what you was like looking for, essentially?
Yeah. So he makes a big deal in the closing narration about how he is not Gary anymore and he's not Ron anymore, but he's a fusion of the two.
Yeah.
Right? Which, like, the positive way of reading that is that he's just more assertive and confident than he was in the past, and that's a good thing. I don't know. I think the main thing I'm looking for is regret, right? This whole thing about how, like, you could even play this a little bit further and say that they're still playing a role when they're the happy family, right? And if they play it for long enough, then maybe it will become real. Like that could have been the thing, but the movie didn't. I didn't see any indication that the movie thought that that's what's happening. I thought the movie was saying they really are now the perfect happy family. There's no problems with any of this, right? I don't know, like, and you could have had this with a facial expression, or I don't know, or maybe they put on a happy facade for the children, but when the children aren't around, they show remorse or something, right? Like, it would have been very easy to show this, and even within the same amount of time, and as a montage and all of that, and that just unless I missed it entirely, it just wasn't there.
No, I don't think it was.
Well, guys, what would you rate this one?
I think, like I said at the start of the review, I was like on the fence with it in terms of being good or bad movie. I think I lean a little bit more towards it being a good movie. I did enjoy most of my time with this film. I'd probably give it a 6.5 out of 10, which is like slightly more positive than negative. Yeah, it's enjoyable. I can see why a lot of people really enjoy this movie and really sort of like highly rate it. For me, there's a few missteps or things that I sort of kind of questioned and maybe didn't completely sit right with me in it, especially like kind of like some of the characters, how it was portrayed and stuff like that. But I think overall, like, you know, there's no harm in watching this movie. You'll for the most part have a good time watching this movie. So I give it a 6.5, maybe a low 7.
Daniel?
So I overall, I really like the movie. I think it's solidly acted, like well acted, even it's solidly written. It knows what it wants to do, and it does that very effectively and with a lot of focus. Like, the reason I've been harping on about the ending a lot is because that's kind of like the big conclusion. Like, that's what it all builds up to, especially for a movie this linear. And it left me a little bit baffled, right? Because it, you know, like for the reasons we've talked about. But overall, I think it's a really well-constructed movie. It's not the meandering mess that a lot of Netflix productions are. Like, and this is not strictly a Netflix production, but, you know, it's a movie you'll find on streaming, right? So for that reason, I would give it maybe a 5 out of 7. So really quite good. It's just a little bit baffling. Like, it's like the last 2 minutes kind of make me question what the author was trying to do in the first place and whether I like it. But just as a movie and as it's a very enjoyable watch.
For me, I'm gonna give this a very low 7. I don't want to say 6.9. I was gonna say 6.9, but I don't want to start this type of rating. So I'm gonna give it a very low 7. Very, you know, I had good experiences. There were critiques that I had and problems that I had in terms of, like, you know, the actor not matching the character, and them not making it, you know, adding a bit of subplots where I wanted to maybe see a bit of mystery revolving around his girlfriend. But besides that, I do think, you know, seeing the whole transitionings and whole, you know, performances in terms of like performing the different personas and different hitmans, and just like seeing the relationship dynamic, and just, you know, just the whole self-conscious theme in terms of just turning yourself into a killer without actually realizing that, I enjoyed that. It was a fun movie overall. Yeah, man, it was good. It was a good Netflix film. It was a good Netflix film. But yeah, cool, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed today's discussion. Hey.
Yes, sir. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Again, we're only getting bigger. We're only sort of improving. So, yeah, come along on the journey with us. We're more than happy to have you.
Definitely. Comment down below what you thought of Hitman also. And we will catch you next week. Over.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.